what does this actually do? And when should I be using it? And if you don't have a convection oven, are you missing out? My journey to finally understanding convection cooking involved lava lamps, ocean currents, air fryers, puffy jackets, wine, and the formation of stars. So buckle up. This is Minute Food. Hang with me for a quick high school science flashback. We all know warm air rises, right? It happens because when you add energy, molecules move around more, taking up more space. In other words, the density of the material decreases. So hotter, less dense air rises, and cooler, denser air moves in and takes its place. This density-driven movement of fluid, and by extension, movement of heat, is called convection. Convection happens all over the place, in a kettle of boiling water, a lava lamp, a hot air balloon, even newly formed stars. And it has big implications. Convection drives ocean currents, weather patterns, and the movement of tectonic plates.
Kate, hi. Oh, sorry, hi. This is Minute Food, remember?
Right, so sorry, I got carried away there. Back to the kitchen. When you turn on your oven, even on just a normal oven setting, the heating element heats up the surrounding air, which, well, you know. So anytime you use an oven, even without the convection setting, convection is happening. But the air and the heat it carries moves pretty slowly. You can see that in this demo. The water in this tub is cold, and I'm going to pour hot water with some food coloring into it. You can immediately see the hot water rise and spread out, and the clear, cooler water moving in and replacing it. The hot and cold water naturally move and mix thanks to those density differences. But this so-called natural convection isn't a very quick or efficient process. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, but add a pump from my pet's water fountain. Sorry guys, which forces the movement of water around the tub. Now the hot and cold water move and mix together much faster and more effectively. That is basically what's going on when you use an actual convection setting in your oven. A fan inside forces the air in the oven to move around. This is actually called forced convection, but I guess that's not quite as catchy a label for a button. Some ovens have two convection settings: convection bake, which usually just uses the bottom heating element, and convection roast, which also uses the top element. But the distinctive feature in either case is the fan that pushes the air around, because that has definite implications for what you're cooking. First and foremost, and pretty obviously based on that demonstration, it leads to a more even distribution of heat inside the oven. Because of how ovens are built and how they work, they tend to have hotter and cooler spots. You can see those in this thin layer of sugar that I baked on just the normal bake setting. But convection, by forcing the hot air around the oven, helps distribute the heat, evening out the temperature throughout. So if you're concerned about hot spots or cooking stuff evenly, the convection setting is worth a try. Convection also tends to cook stuff faster. The faster the air is moving, the more quickly it can move heat toward the food and keep replenishing that heat. What's more, because of some technical physicsy stuff that happens between a solid and a moving fluid, as food cooks, it's surrounded by a layer of relatively cool, relatively still air. And air is a great insulator. That's why we have puffy jackets and use double-paned windows. So that layer of air, in scientific parlance, the thermal boundary layer, actually protects your food from the oven's heat. But the faster the air in the oven is moving, the thinner that boundary layer gets, increasing the heat transfer by somewhere between 10 and 50%, depending on the food. So if you're in a hurry, convection might help. The third big benefit of convection cooking is ultra-browned crispiness. As all that fast-moving air thins out the boundary layer and whisks away moisture from the surface of the food, it creates the dry, high-temperature conditions that promote the Maillard reaction and a crispy surface. So anything you want to get nice and brown, crispy, or simply dried out can benefit from the convection setting. But convection isn't always ideal. That fast-moving air can mess with delicate foods and lightweight stuff. And faster cooking times might prevent dense, wet doughs like banana bread from getting fully set, or some cookies from spreading out as much as they should. But honestly, for most conventional recipes, you can use the convection setting. That's what we do in our house. You'll probably want to drop the oven temp just a bit and reduce the cooking time. But what if you want the benefits of convection cooking, but don't have an oven with a convection setting? There are fans out there that you can put in your oven. My dad stumbled on these a while ago when he was trying to make more deeply browned bagels. But companies don't seem to make them anymore, so they're kind of hard to find. The best substitute for convection cooking, hands down, is an air fryer. We did a whole video on how air fryers work, but basically air fryers rely on a kind of supercharged convection, more accurately known as impingement. Instead of a fan blowing air wherever, air fryers blow super high velocity air right at the food. This basically gives you a lot of the same benefits of convection cooking, but like amplified. Air fryers are like convection ovens on steroids. There are other hacks too, based on what you want out of the convection setting. If you're looking for better heat distribution in your oven, you can try cooking with a pizza stone on the bottom rack. It'll hold onto heat and help diffuse it through the oven. You can also try rotating your pans more frequently. If you're going for better browning or colossal crispiness, make sure your food is good and dry, and try any of the other tips from our Maillard video. You can also try starting your cook at a higher temp than normal before bringing it down for the rest of the bake. These tips won't get you all the way to the level of a convection oven or an air fryer, but they should help you reap at least some of the same benefits. And speaking of benefits, convection isn't just helpful in your oven. You can put the very same scientific principles to work in other ways in your kitchen. You're already doing it every time you, say, stir soup. Mixing up the hotter and cooler parts of the fluid is a perfect example of forced convection. And you can take this idea even farther. If you need to defrost something fast, put it in a bowl of warm water under a slowly dribbling tap. It'll keep the warm water moving around, defrosting your food in a fraction of the time. An immersion circulator, one of those sous vide thingies, forces even more circulation, warming cold stuff up or chilling warm stuff down in record time. That is better eating and drinking through science. If you're in the market for an air fryer, and this thing is so amazing that even if you don't think you're in the market, you might be, check out the Typhor Dome 2. I have become such a fan of Typhor ever since I used their life-changing wireless thermometers in our spatchcocking video. Not only are their products thoughtfully designed to make you a better cook, but they also look so good in your kitchen. Okay, so the Dome 2 has what Typhor calls 360-degree heating technology. Basically, 2 different heating elements supercharge that super fast-moving air to make sure your food is cooked quickly and evenly with less shaking and flipping. I also love the basket size. It is huge, big enough to fit almost 3 dozen wings. And maybe my favorite feature? It cleans itself. The upgraded self-cleaning feature runs at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, making sure the interior is clean and ready for my next batch of wings. Or anything else, really. Just do yourself a favor and go check out the cool stuff that Typhor makes. Right now, with code MINUTEFOOD15, you can get 15% off a Typhor Dome 2 air fryer, either at typhor.com or at Amazon. Links are in the description.